So welcome to another Pop Knowledge. We have Sara Smith from Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks with us again, and she is going to talk to us about snowshoeing.
Yeah, all right. So thank you for having me. So I do work for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks at Montana Wild and Helena, and I do the Becoming an Outdoors Woman program, among a few other things, but snowshoeing classes are very popular. We have one in Missoula next month that just filled up. So I thought I'd talk to you about snowshoeing because it's a great way to get outside, get some exercise in the winter, keep cabin fever at bay. And so we'll just kind of go through some things to think about when you're choosing snowshoes and some techniques. Obviously, it's kind of hard to do those techniques or show you, but I'll walk you through them, and I've got a little video for one of them. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we will get going here. Okay. So if you can walk, you can snowshoe. That's what I like to tell people. So it's not super difficult to learn. It's pretty inexpensive to get into. It's not something like skiing where you can easily hurt yourself, at least in my opinion. I'm a little biased, but snowshoeing, it's great exercise. It's easy to do, and you can pretty much do it anywhere. So I did want to show you this just because I think it's really cool. Archaeology is a passion, but people have been using snowshoes for a really, really, really long time. So we've had snow way in the past, and they figured out how to make these so that they could stay on top of the snow and travel around a little bit easier. So this is the world's oldest snowshoe. Really cool. And you'll see here in a minute, some of them haven't really changed. I mean, they've obviously changed, but the idea hasn't really changed. These are some other kind of historical versions, and there's a really cool article. I think it's on the Forest Service website, but they have kind of a whole history of the different styles. And I think they said there's 5, kind of everything can be lumped into kind of these 5 styles. And so you can kind of see the differences here. These rounded ones on the right were if you were in really tight trees and you couldn't maneuver around as much. So those were the kind of considerations that people were taking into account when they were building these, to be in the mountains, to be in the snow, trekking across the plains, things like that. But we've come a long way. We've come a long way from these. I don't know, the ones on the left, it's hard to show scale, but if you've ever seen them at an antique store or on somebody's wall, like these things were huge. They were very large. So you can imagine how unwieldy that must have been, but it was better than going down into the deep snow and trying to cross it without something like this. So here's a comparison of a modern snowshoe and a historical snowshoe. So you can see these modern snowshoes have gotten smaller, lighter, really amazing materials, really hardy materials. They take a lot of beating, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but we've come quite a long way, but we're still using snowshoes. I'm sorry, this is a little hard to read, but these are just some of the parts of a snowshoe. So if you're interested in knowing the terminology, again, we've come a long way, but there's still a lot of similar parts on these snowshoes. And so kind of similar shape and design still. So while materials have come a long way, we're still respecting the past when it comes to snowshoe design. Okay, so you want a snowshoe, and kind of like any other outdoor recreational sport you might decide to start, there's a lot of options. A lot of options out there. This is just a handful that I found. So it can be a little confusing to figure out what's going to work best for you. The first thing you want to think about is the sizing. So just like a shoe that you'd wear, snowshoes come in different sizes, and it's not about the size of your foot with snowshoeing. It's about the weight that you'll be carrying on the snowshoe. So you can see some of the different weights and lengths. So the more weight you want to carry, the longer the snowshoe is going to be, because it's distributing your weight out over the snow to help keep you up as much as possible. They do say, when in doubt, or if you're going to be out a lot, try to get the smallest size that will support you and the weight that you're carrying if you're going to have a big backpack on. They'll just be a little easier to handle, especially if you're in tight trees. If you get some of those longer 30-inch or even longer, they can be just a little hard to maneuver and turn in and things, but it's better than having you going through the snow because your little tiny snowshoes just can't hold you up. It's kind of like a life jacket. You want something that has enough flotation to keep your head above water. And it's kind of the same idea with the snowshoe. You want to distribute your weight to the best of your ability so that you aren't sinking all the way down into the snow. So make sure you look at that when you start looking at snowshoes. They usually are labeled with these length numbers. I brought a couple with me. I don't know if you guys will be able to see really well, but like this pair has it right on the end, 23. So this is a size 23 snowshoe. So it's pretty small. I'm also a very tall person and a big person. So I have 30-inch snowshoes. And because my legs are so long, they're not hard for me to maneuver. But if you were shorter, they really might give you some problems. Something to think about. And then we'll talk about the types of snowshoes. So hiking, recreational, those are the most common. Those are what you're going to see at Costco being sold with poles. These are kind of just your everyday snowshoes. You're not hiking an ice mountain or anything. They're usually pretty inexpensive. Some of those kits that you can find only cost like $60, and they come with poles. Pretty good buy if you just want to try them out and you're just doing, you know, something around Helena or just going on, you know, kind of flat terrain or rolling hills. You're not going straight up a mountain. These are fine. This Atlas pair that I brought has a good example of what the bottom would look like. So it's got some teeth, right? That's what's going to help you if you do have any little hills or rocks or things, but it's not super aggressive. So there's also a lot of different binding types, and you can find a lot of these bindings on a lot of different styles, but I did just want to bring that up. If anyone has Chaco sandals, this is like the binding of a Chaco sandal. It's all looped through and you would be pulling on this to tighten the strap versus this one that kind of just has a click-in binding. All you have to do is click it in. I'm partial to these bindings because I don't have to monkey around with them very much. But again, just a recreational entry-level snowshoe, probably going to be a good fit for most people. Kids and families, definitely the way to go. Backcountry snowshoes. So obviously, if you're going to be going on a little bit more challenging terrain, you're going to want something that's a little more aggressive. If you're going up steep, icy terrain, you want aggressive crampons. That's what they call the teeth. And so this is a good example. You can kind of see the difference. These have teeth all the way down the sides. You guys can see that. So these are much more aggressive than that other pair that I showed you. These are going to take you up super icy, steep places. Probably a little more expensive, just again, because they've got more crampons, more metal. You know, you could hike if you knew you were going to be doing some just general stuff, but you were going to be doing backcountry too. Go with the most aggressive because it's not going to hurt you to snowshoe with an aggressive snowshoe on, you know, little flat rolling hills. But if you try to take a recreational snowshoe up an icy mountain, you're probably not going to have the best of times. So if you know you're going to be doing a lot of different things, I would say to go with the most aggressive option because you can always use it in less aggressive situations. Believe it or not, there are running snowshoes. This is a thing. People race in these things. It's crazy. If you think snowshoeing regularly is a workout, this is a crazy workout, but they usually do groom or pack down the trail that they're using so they're not going deep into the snow. But they're usually pretty short, narrow, very light. It's unbelievable how light some of these racing snowshoes are. And they're just becoming more and more popular. So this is a type of snowshoe that you might actually see if you go to a store. And so there are different materials, and this aluminum frame, that's what I was showing you in the last two snowshoes. They're still pretty light, but they're definitely not as light as these composite snowshoes. And MSR is a brand that does a lot of these composite snowshoes. I have not been able to get my hands on any for the last 2 years. They're super popular. People like them. You can put a tail on the end. So when I talk about kind of the length, you know, we've got this tail built into this snowshoe, but that one in the middle, that blue snowshoe, they actually have a tail that you can snap on the back so that you can actually lengthen your snowshoe if you need to. So that's kind of a cool option with those MSR snowshoes. And then you've got a foam snowshoe, which sounds crazy. But again, some of these running type snowshoes are super light and they don't have as aggressive a traction on the bottom because they're going to be on a groomed trail, but you could actually get a foam snowshoe. I would never use one, but I'm not racing. So pretty cool, all the different materials. And all of these, well, at least the aluminum and composite, they're tough. Like I said, you can really put them through the paces, rocks, things like that. They're tough, they're built to last. A heel lift, this is something that you might want to think about when you buy snowshoes. Most of the ones that you'd buy in a pack at like Murdoch's or Costco might not have this, but a heel lift is basically a bar on the back of the snowshoe, sorry, that comes up and down. Let's see if I can get it down. There we go. So this piece comes up and down, and the purpose of it is so when you're going up a hill, you, instead of your foot having to come all the way down when you're picking up your foot, your heel actually stops on this bar, and it really helps you when you're going uphill. It just kind of lets you do a little bit less work, keep your calves from being on fire if they're not already, just save you some energy as you're going uphill. So that's something to take into consideration. If you think you'll be doing some uphill, I would definitely recommend getting a pair of snowshoes with a heel lift. I think it's worth it. I have one on mine and I tend to use it quite often. So just a cool little feature that some snowshoes don't come with. So we'll kind of, with that, kind of kick into some of the techniques. So you buy your snowshoes, you figured out what kind of binding system you like. I can't even show you all the different types of bindings because there's so many, but what I showed you on these snowshoes is pretty common. But if you want to go up hills, so you can see they've got a heel lift in here. It's really simple. If you think about the hill, you're just gonna kick, kind of dig your snowshoe into the hill, make sure that you've got good footing underneath you, step up, kick in, dig into the snow, step up. So you're basically just kicking in and climbing your way up the hill. It's pretty easy. It gives you a really, makes you feel really good, and you're not gonna be slipping and sliding backwards if you kick in and kind of dig yourself in a little trench to give you some leverage as you're going up hills. So that's a good thing to know. That's something we always teach people, how to go up a hill correctly. I guess I was just had that picture there for the heel lift, but just like anything else that you do in Montana, you want to be prepared. You're going to be outside, you're going to be in the snow, but you're also going to be working pretty hard depending on where you're snowshoeing and how fast you're going. And so it's really important to dress in layers, things that are going to wick moisture away from you as you sweat, as you're getting your workout. And so anything you do outside in Montana, I highly recommend you dress in layers, but especially when you're doing aerobic activities, it's really important. You don't want to have that sweat kind of get cold and freeze and get your body kind of hypothermic. Hat and gloves, mittens, of course, sunglasses, sunscreen. Sun coming off the snow can really blind you, so and burn you. So it's important to remember those things. Gaiters are what this person has on their legs. I don't know if you can see that, but they are basically, you strap them over whatever pants you're wearing, and it just helps keep the snow out of your shoes. And these are pretty high ones, so they probably aren't going to have any problems going over that when they're snowshoeing. So if you don't want to wear like heavy snow pants and you just want to make sure you keep the snow out of your shoes, gaiters are a great thing to have for snowshoeing. And then REI has their own checklist, and this is a pretty extensive checklist, but there's some really good things on it. Obviously you need snowshoeing gear, and boots are something that people ask me about. As long as you have warm, waterproof boots, you're probably going to be fine. You don't have to worry about, different sizes of shoes fitting on snowshoes. It's basically whatever you're wearing is going to fit. That's why there's binding systems, so you can ratchet them down and make sure they're going to stay on your foot. But they're kind of saying the same thing. You should have moisture wicking clothing. I always have a snack and some water. That's just something that you should take, because again, you're going to be burning calories, so it's a good idea to keep eating and drinking. First aid kit, I always have a little one in my backpack, just a good thing to have. Avalanche awareness is important. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but yeah, just kind of the regular items that you would probably carry if you were going to go out and do any kind of other recreation in the winter. So you can look that list up on their website if you're interested in printing it off and having an actual checklist for your adventures. So I see it says that Dave's in the waiting room. I'm not sure if anyone wants to admit him, but that's popped up on my screen.
Thank you for seeing that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
There we go.
Okay, so we talked about going uphill, and now we're going to talk about going downhill. And this isn't too steep in this picture, so this is pretty easy. If you keep your poles planted in front of you, that kind of just helps keep your balance as you're going downhill. Not tensing up, kind of relaxing your knees, relaxing your body, kind of just let yourself go downhill. There's also a method called I can never say it, glissading, which is a very fancy term for basically, if you do it right, you kind of get a run down the hill and you kind of glide down the hill on your snowshoes. But I wanted to, I'm going to stop sharing for a second and reshare. I wanted to show you this little video because this is what I think it pretty much always looks like when you actually try to do this. So can you guys see that okay? I'm going to assume you can. So I'm going to play this.
I'm waiting for the face plant and not being able to get up.
He did.
Yeah, I like the person videoing that just kept laughing.
So he kind of got it there at the end. You could kind of sliding down, but usually when in doubt, I just go on my butt and I just go downhill. If it's too steep and I don't feel comfortable, I'm on my butt and I'm sliding down. But I was nice to see that I'm not the only one that happens to. That snow was really deep, and he did the best he could, but that's the fancy term if you really want to challenge to do that. Okay, so descents, not as hard as you think. So getting up after a fall. So this is something that a lot of people can get a little scared about, and it's probably going to happen. When I say a fall, you're probably just going to tip over. It's not going to be that big of a deal. You can't really hurt yourself because you don't have like long skis that you're going to get crossed or anything. Your snowshoes are going to stay on your feet. It's more, you've probably just maybe gone off of a path or got off balance and you just kind of tip over. But it can be difficult to get back up because the snow is so deep. And so if you have poles, it's a really good thing. They can kind of help give you some leverage to get yourself back up. So you can see how she's made this X with her poles and you can kind of just push yourself back up. Obviously, if you have a friend, have them help you. Don't take off your snowshoes. I can tell you this from experience. I got into some really, really deep snow. It was probably up past my calf to my knee, and I got a little off balance and I tipped over, and I was like, oh, it's going to be easier for me to get up if I take my snowshoes off. Well, I post holed all the way to my waist. That's how deep the snow is. without my snowshoes on. And so it's really important not to take your snowshoes off because you're going to get in even deeper. And thankfully I had someone with me and they helped me get situated, but that was a lesson learned when I first started, because you just don't think about how deep the snow really is when you're kind of on the top of it. It's deeper than what you're on. Just remember that. If you don't have poles, you can use your hands in a similar fashion. You will kind of go through, but if you just keep piling snow back up, again, you're going to kind of build yourself something you can push off of and bring yourself back up. So again, probably not going to hurt yourself if you fall. You just might need to work a little bit to get back up. So as far as safety goes, again, just like with any kind of outdoor recreation, with snowshoeing in the winter, taking avalanche awareness class is a really good idea. Even if you're not going to be in places where you think you might have avalanche problems, I just think it's a really good idea to do it. Having a first aid class under your belt is always great. I highly, highly, highly recommend you always tell someone where you're going, when you'll be back. Take someone with you, always have a friend. So if you do need some help or one of you falls down, the other one can help you back up. Don't go if there's any doubt about the weather. It's hard in Montana because it changes so fast, but you don't really want to get stuck out there in a blizzard. Taking extra clothing to make sure you stay dry. I usually always just have at least an extra pair of mittens. So if I do fall and my mittens get all wet, I can take them off, get myself up, put my dry mittens on and keep going. Drinking plenty of water, knowing that it's going to be a workout and you're going to sweat, you need to rehydrate. And anymore, I tell people to take bear spray with them, just because depending on how warm it is, where you're snowshoeing, what time of year, there is potential that you could see a bear. So those are just some of the general safety things that I like to talk about. And I think, let me double check here. I thought I had some extra slides, but nope, I think I got them all. Nope, we're good. Okay, so that's all I had for you formally, but I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have or more specific things about certain types of snowshoes but yeah, that's just kind of a general overview that could get you going.
That's pretty cool, Sarah. That looks like a lot of work.
It depends on where you go. So
yeah.
If out here past Spring Meadow Lake, there's that Prickly Pear 10-mile trail. We just like to go out there. You're just walking in the snow, but snowshoes just make it a little easier. So if you are climbing straight up mountains, it's a lot of work, but if you just want to go for a walk in the winter and you don't have like a paved trail or something that's been packed down, snowshoeing can just get you out there and just give you a little bit more workout than a normal walk. So
sure, and maybe if you're new to it, starting out, it's something that's on a nice groomed trail, like you said, the Prickly Pear would be the best way to get started, not go trekking up in the mountains on your first run out of the gate, right?
Correct. Yes, I would always start small. We also like to go out past Costco. Like if you turn on to, I think it's York Road, there's a fishing access site just a little ways out there. It's a great place to snowshoe around the Helena Regulating Reservoir. It's a 5-mile loop. That's a great place to snowshoe. Very little terrain, very little hill. But if you tried to do it without snowshoes, you'd probably quit after a few feet.
Now, did I understand you correctly that snowshoes, are they kind of like skis where you're buying the snowshoe base and then you're binding separately?
No, actually, they're all put together for you.
Okay.
And there's a lot of different brands. This is Tubbs. I know that thing probably look backwards to you guys, but this is a pretty reputable brand. This is a good one. They make, again, recreational snowshoes, backcountry snowshoes. But yeah, this is all going to come on the snowshoes. So when you decide what you want, you don't really get to like pick parts. So that's, yeah, a good question. You can see like it's kind of bolted on here. You can get replacement parts for some of this. Some of the less expensive pieces, like sometimes the plastic might break. And usually you can always find replacements. Something I didn't tell you is that some snowshoes have a right and left and some don't, but on this one there is a right. Like if you look inside the snowshoe, it would say R or L. So that's something to keep in mind. So that's a good brand. Atlas is another good brand. Atlas makes a women's snowshoe that is a little narrower because of the way I guess our hips are. I've tried men's and women's. I haven't personally found it to be a difference, but some people really do prefer women's snowshoes. But this is a really good brand. This one also has the right on it. I'm trying to think of which ones we have. We have some brands that don't have a right or a left, but these are both good brands. MSR is a really good brand. And a lot of the other ones, Uncle Bob's and things like that, that you'll see those kind of kits. They're not bad by any means, just know that they might not last forever, but they're a great way to get into it for relatively little money. And a couple different places in town also rent snowshoes. So I'm a big proponent of renting and trying before you buy. In Helena here, our golf course is groomed for cross-country skiers. So I would say an little etiquette tidbit, please don't snowshoe on cross-country ski trails. They groom those for cross-country skis. You can snowshoe off to the side, so you could go out to the golf course potentially and snowshoe other places, but try not to snowshoe on their nice groomed trails.
Cool. Thanks for saying about the rentals, because that was actually my next question. Because you don't want to go spending a bunch of money on something and then decide you don't really like it. It's nice to try it out.
Yeah, I think Base Camp, I think Capital Sports, I think Play It Again Sports might, but there's a lot of options in town.
Okay, that's really cool to know.
Yeah. And they have kids snowshoes, which are the cutest things I've ever seen, if you can imagine. And some of them look like monster feet. So as the kids are making their tracks, they're leaving monster feet tracks. It's great.
Oh, okay, I want those.
I know, right? Why don't they
sounds fun.
Size? Yeah, so kids snowshoes are great.
And maybe not something you want to buy for a kid because their feet are growing so fast.
Yeah, they're going to grow. They potentially will. They'll grow out of them more with weight than they will with their shoe, probably.
Good point.
Yeah, it's not something you want to spend a lot of money on to have them grow out of.
Okay.
That was going to be my question, is the weight factor with the ones that you showed there and stuff on there, that what kind of weight for the person that was those two that you showed there, two brands and stuff?
Yeah,
100 pounds, 120.
So I think you missed that slide, Dave, but let me get to it real quick, because that's definitely something that you want to take into consideration. I think these are both 23. Where'd my PowerPoint go?
And I was curious on that size thing. Does the 23 refer to the number of inches long? Or,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me. Why is it not showing? There it is. Okay, you guys can see that. So 80 to 160 pounds ish, 21 to 23 inches. So, I mean, you could push it up to 160 with these. It's probably just a matter of preference again. If you want something a little bigger, if you think you can maneuver in them to, if you have a backpack, you need to consider that that's going to be added weight that you're going to need to take into consideration. So these are pretty small snowshoes. I know it's hard again with the scale for what I can show you in front of me, but yeah, these are pretty small snowshoes.
Yeah, and I always had a backpack full of metal equipment.
Yeah, that makes a difference.
Yeah, so that's why I was wondering that. I know the Canadians and stuff, theirs was a little bit more round, and they were made. The round was out of a aluminum bar or tubing on it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were almost as wide, not quite as wide as what they were long and stuff on there, but
yeah, there's so many different styles.
Now you got to remember, I'm going back about 30, almost 40 years too.
There you go.
Yeah, see, now this is the one right here on the left.
Yeah,
That's all the stuff that I did.
Yeah, that's
on
awesome.
it.
So
And
I
I'll
had a
tell you
question.
that it's amazing on it, how much snow, when it's wet, the poundage that you can get on those things up front on it. But
Yeah,
this,
so
okay, the one on the, the one on the right, those are about what the Canadians had, except they were aluminum and weren't made out of a
yeah.
wood and stuff on it.
Yeah, so that kind of round, shorter shape, it's really good if you're trying to maneuver in like really thick trees, because you're not trying to, catch your snowshoes as you're going in between trees and things like that. You can imagine the longer your snowshoes get, the harder it is to back up, turn, things like that. So if you're out in the middle of nowhere with no trees, it's not a big deal. But if you're trying to do it in thick timber, it can be a little interesting.
And I didn't even think about that because I, always went straight and stuff on there. I
Mhm.
mean, and when you got on up to a creek or something on it that, that you could take the stuff off and move around a little bit.
Yeah,
But if you're out in real deep stuff on there and go across country, stay away from those little twigs sticking up out of the snow on there that those can be a long ways down on there. I found out the hard way.
Oh yeah, for sure. What's nice about these more modern ones too, is that they do kind of, let me stop here. Oops. They do kind of have like you won't get a lot of snow, even if it's kind of wet, you might get a little bit of buildup on here, but it's pretty good. You can usually kind of get a stick or something, but you don't pack as much onto these as you might have some of those older style ones. But you're right, when you get the wet stuff and you start getting it to pack in here, it can be a little tricky.
Mine was just on the stuff that I really noticed was on the toe.
Mm-hmm.
And I I was out over a mile and I pulled my groin, and that was a long trip back and stuff on it. And it gets that heavy and stuff on it.
Yeah, that does not sound fun.
So I was curious about that style that had the really long stick at the end. Was there a benefit to that? Like, I can understand that would be useful when you're creating the snowshoe.
Do you mean
But-
on that older one?
Yeah, why didn't they chop it off? Do they ever put that stick on new ones? Like,
So, that's kind of what we talk, like that's kind of the grandfather of this kind of tail end of it. It just kind of helps again keep you a bit above the snow. Like those MSR ones, you can actually attach something like this to kind of give you a little bit more distribution out over the snow. They're just wider now because obviously that little stick isn't going to do a whole ton to distribute weight, but it does just help lengthen your overall snowshoe and give you a little bit more oomph when you're going through it.
so even though it was quite skinny on the older ones, it really did actually help them stay up.
It probably helped them a little bit. Probably not like a tail you'd add to an MSR snowshoe, but yeah.
I really kind of thought that was the help when they had to restring them. Also, is that you squeeze those together and was able to hold it into the shape.
That very well could be.
On it, and and then restring it, and then you don't really need it until the next time on it. But
That makes sense.
The leather wears out, and
Mhm.
even though you shellac the stuff down on it to help preserve it a while on there, it doesn't last forever.
Yeah, because I was
Yeah.
thinking that it would help when you're actually making them, but then why not chop it off? But if you had to restring them all the time, then yeah, it makes sense to leave it on.
I
Yeah.
kind of suspect that, if you were using it all the time, I suspect once a year you would have to restring it.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on those older ones, but yeah, I mean, you definitely have to take care of those materials.
How long are those races that they do? Like, I know trail racers will go hundreds of miles. Is it that kind of thing, or?
I think it's kind of similar to, there's a variety of levels or kilometers or Ks that you can choose to do. I haven't seen very much in Montana. It doesn't mean it's not happening, but it's definitely something that's growing in popularity, and you're starting to see, at least I have started to see more of those foam racing type snowshoes at like REI, and it's kind of maybe a trendy thing to start doing. My husband just asked for a pair, so he doesn't want to race, but he does want to run in the winter, and he's got cleats, but cleats on his running shoes, it's just not like working for him. And I said, hey, guess what? There's foam snowshoes. And again, he'd have to stay on something that's kind of packed down or kind of somewhat groomed, but he wouldn't have to. It'd be a lot better than him trying to wear ice cleats running. So,
Huh.
Yeah,
Does
it'd
it,
be
do
nice
they have
to,
pretty good teeth in them, or do they
They
end up
don't.
being like,
yeah, they don't have this kind of crampons that you would see on something like this. Let me see if I can find the bottom of one.
'cause I can just imagine being on the slightest hill and then all of a sudden you're going backwards or
Yeah,
flying
so
like skis.
let's see, I'm trying to find. So this is an okay picture. I'll share my screen here in a second. So yeah, probably not like a trail running, not like you'd think maybe like with a trail running shoe in the spring or, summer, but they do have some teeth, but not compared to even just the two that I've showed you here that have much more aggressive, but they have enough to keep you upright on something that's somewhat packed or groomed. So $209, they're not cheap. Yeah, because they're super light. Apparently these are very ergonomic, but yeah, they're in their own category for sure.
So you could probably start out with this for under 100.
Oh yeah, yep. The ones that you can buy that have the poles and the snowshoes, I regularly see them for like $69.99, $79.99, and you get poles, which is great. I always recommend having them, just give you a little bit of extra balance. They usually have, unlike hiking poles in the summer, they have a basket on them so that your poles aren't going straight down in the snow and not helping you. They're kind of keeping you up. And some of the ones that you can buy have the basket, so you can take them on or take them off, so you can use them in the summer or the winter, so you don't have to buy another pair of poles. So
that heel lift that's on the back of those, is it difficult to get down when you're out in the snow and you have gloves on and stuff?
No, because you can just kick it down with your boot. Okay. So it's a lot easier than me trying to do it with my hand in here. I would just use my back of my snowshoe and kick it down. Okay. Yeah, it's much easier when it's on your foot and you can kick it down than me trying to like wrestle it down.
I was thinking they need something like that for the summertime for on the back of your shoe for when you're hiking.
Oh, right? I know.
Somebody should invent that. Maybe that's
what's that for?
It's called a heel lift. And so it pops down and pops up, but when your foot is in the snowshoe, let's see if I can pretend this is my foot. When you're going up a hill, when your foot is coming down, instead of having to lift it all the way down and all the way up as you're going up the hill, your heel stops here. So it just gives you a little bit of extra support, helps you not spend quite as much energy as you're going up hills.
Yeah, it's sort of like walking on your toes and stuff on there.
Yeah.
Dig in.
Yep. So it's pretty cool. I was going to say, what else was I going to say? I just forgot, but yeah, you guys can see here, like you could fit a variety of boot sizes in this and just work on your binding system. But yeah, you're just kind of making sure that your foot is in the base of this plastic piece here.
I was just talking with my husband this last weekend about picking up snowshoeing and whether we should or not.
Yeah, rent a pair.
Yes.
yeah, rent some and see what you think. That's a great way. I think they're super cheap to rent, like 10, 50 maybe. I don't know for sure, but usually they're not the most expensive thing you're going to rent.
I'm glad you mentioned the whole etiquette about not going on a ski trail, because that would have been my first thought, honestly, without thinking about it.
And if you go around like that 10-mile trail or, regulating reservoir, usually people are out walking anyway. So they're probably going to already be a little packed down, which will really help you as you're starting out and figuring out how just how you have to place your feet and walk in them. But yeah, if you want to go through fresh powder all day, you can. Another little etiquette thing is if you're with more than one person, you take turns breaking trail because it's a lot of work. So you kind of try to rotate to make sure that the person breaking the trail doesn't just have to keep breaking trail because they're going through that powder for the first time. It's a lot of work.
Kind of like geese in the V. They got to trade out the front leader.
Right. Yeah. Switch geese once in a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. I enjoy it. Like I said, I can't really hurt myself. I can get out in the winter. I don't have to go very far around Helena to do it. But it makes me feel like I'm on a winter adventure.
Will you let us know if you've got a snowshoeing class coming up in Helena?
Yeah, I might do one. I'm talking to a volunteer about a potential date. So if it actually comes to fruition, I will let you know that.
I would appreciate that because I might rent and give it a try if I have somebody who knows what they're doing to go with.
Yeah, that makes a difference.
And is that how it works with those classes that you do? Do you rent your snowshoes and then bring them, or?
So usually I just charge like a $5 class fee, and then we have the snowshoes for you to use.
Perfect.
And I've got multiple styles for people to try.
Very, very cool. That's a good way to try them then.
Yeah, it is.
All right, Maria, I'm in if you're in.
Depends on the date.
That's right, huh?
It's on the snow. Right now
Yeah.
we've got some. It's raining. It's making me a little nervous. I'm like, no, not my snow. So
maybe it'll make a nice crust on top to walk on.
Yeah.
Is that harder? Is it harder with a crust on the snow or easier?
I guess it depends on how deep the snow is. Like if you're breaking through crust, it kind of gets, for me, a little tedious to be like feeling like, oh, I'm going to stay on top and then I go through, and then I'm going to stay on top and then I go through. Whereas powder, like I know I'm just going to go in it, but you're always like, wait, crunch. And then it's just, But again, even when you're in deep snow, if without those snowshoes on, it's deeper. So it's just pretty mind blowing how effective these things are, even when you think maybe they aren't. So.
Yeah, that it really would have been fun, if it wasn't just for work and stuff on it. But it really is interesting and stuff just to get on out. It makes you feel alive, that's for sure.
And I feel like you don't run into as many people usually in the winter. So I don't mind seeing a couple people on the trail when I'm out, but in the winter, like you truly feel like you're out in the winter wonderland, and you may or may not see another person out, and it's just a cool feeling.
One thing I was going to mention, that you could send your dog out to help break trail.
You could. I have a friend that ski jors with hers, so she has cross-country ski. She attaches the dog to the harness and the dog pulls her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you are very brave. People do it with horses too, which blows my mind. But
yeah, Wisdom there has a couple of 3 of those every winter and stuff on there. They've shot movies and stuff of them and put them on TV, local TV here. And stuff on it.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say about the crust and stuff, if it is thick enough, it's just like walking on concrete and stuff on there. You can really zip along.
Yeah.
But that stuff where you break through and stuff on there, that you never know when it's going to happen, and you get that sudden jolt.
Yep.
It's not a soft one when you hit down below.
Not a nice surprise by any means.
Yeah.
I don't like not knowing. I think that's like which step is going to be the one.
I know exactly what you mean on it.
That suspense, I don't need it.
Only a little better than walking on too thin of ice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, don't do that. Remember my ice glass? Don't do that.
Yeah,
I'm remembering.
Remember.
You're definitely remembering.
I do have I will have a women's ice fishing class registration coming out probably tomorrow. So if either of you are interested, please let me know.
Love you, but that's a hard pass for me.
Okay, that's fine. I totally understand. There's a foot of ice at the regulating reservoir right now, so
Wow.
That's pretty good.
really good, really good. So
Thank you. Is that just on the FWP website?
yes, it'll be on under the education tab. There's the Becoming an Outdoors Woman page, and it'll be on there.
Sweet. Thank you.
But just send me an email if you're interested, and I'll just send it to you. They fill quickly, so.
I'll tell you, I really appreciate your talks on it. Bring back a lot of memories, and I learned on it also on it. But I think you do a very good job, and it's nice to have somebody that has done it, not just read in a book.
Yeah. If I want to teach it, I got to do it. So
There you go.
yeah, might always not do it the best, but good enough to teach some.
No, I think you do.
Well, good. I've enjoyed them. So. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
You guys have a great one, and hopefully you can get out when it's a little warmer here these next few days, and at least get a breath of non-freezing air, and make our winter a little shorter. But okay.
Sounds good.
Sarah,
Thank you,
thank
Sam.
so much for being with us again. Like Dave said, we really liked your talks. We learned so much, and you make us want to get out and do stuff.
Good.
Except
That's the whole point.
And Happy New Year.
Thanks. Yeah, you too. I know I still don't think I've realized it's another year, but
Yeah.
still going right along.
Right on. All right. Well, we'll let you go. Thanks again so much, Sarah.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Yeah, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.